So what's up people, and welcome to another Alita Battle Angel video. Yeah, I apologize, in my previous video I said I wouldn't make any more until the movie came out. And then recently I was thinking about the story and about the movie trailers, and something started coming up again. And so I thought I would make this video to ask you viewers a question with regards to what I'm thinking about. In any case, this video is going to be full of spoilers once again, and so I'm going to give my default spoiler alert. If you haven't read the comic all the way up to Battle Angel Alita Last Order, maybe the middle part or the final part of Last Order, then I would suggest that you turn off this video unless you don't mind being spoiled with regards to the comic story potentially being in the movie. So the question that has been on my mind revolves around this particular scene in the trailer.
If you let her live,
she will destroy the natural order of things.
Now in my previous videos, I kind of mentioned that I found this statement to be curious because the question was the natural order of what things? In the early chapters of Battle Angel Alita, there was really nothing that Alita seemed to be challenging with regards to the natural order of whatever is going on in the comic. And so what is this natural order that Vector is talking about here was a question that always bugged me. And in my last video, I suggested maybe one possibility is that once she becomes a motorball player, that she starts affecting and becoming a problem with the natural order of how the motorball industry is being, being operated. However, as I kept on thinking about this more, there was another part of that trailer that I found very curious as well.
I remember the war. And the ground shook. And the sky burned.
after the fall, everything changed.
So from these two scenes, there indicates a major change that occurred, at least in Scrapyard City, after the war. And the war that they're talking about, I presume, is the Terraformer Wars, because that was the big war in the comic that occurred, several hundred years before the beginning of the Battle Angel Alita storyline, where Ito discovers Alita's remains. And so the question that I had was, if they're talking about this, what was this major change that they're talking about that at least occurred in Scrapyard City and potentially occurred in the entire Jerusalem space elevator, all the way from Scrapyard City all the way up to the base Salem city, that hangs above the Scrapyard City. And of course, that goes all the way up to the top of the space elevator where the other city, Jeru, sits. And so, what was the major change that occurred after the war? And the one that I could think of was the creation of Ladder. Now, if you recall, Ladder was the interplanetary kind of space council that governed the peace between the various planets, that were the members of Ladder. It was kind of like the NATO of this era, this world, or if you think about when the Soviet Union existed, the Warsaw Pact, depending upon, what sort of governance there was. And so, in the comic world of Battle Angel Alita, you recall that Ladder was one of the main superpowers of that comic verse, along with the Republic of Jupiter and the Republic of Venus. And so the question was, it was true that Ladder was created after the war, and it was created due to the war because of the situation that occurred, what was that called, in the Cameron tragedy. That was what happened, or that's what the world called the tragic events that occurred due to the Operation Malwolf, the things that occurred after the Operation Malwolf. And so if that's the case, would the creation of Ladder be what the movie is talking about? And if so, does Alita's existence or reappearance cause a problem with that? And so thinking about it, I came up with two possibilities. It could be one or the other, or it could even be both. So I'll just go over both of them. The first, of course, is that Alita's past life may cause a problem with regards to the existence of Ladder. As you know, Alita was the key entity that triggered Operation Malwolf to start, and which resulted in the Cameron tragedy that caused the death of, I think it was 500,000 people, or was it 5 million people? I can never remember. It was 0.5 or 5. But anyway, a large number of people. I mean, a significant number of people. It was one of the most tragic events that occurred in that comic history. And Alita, of course, being the trigger, was associated with that. And as we know, it was basically that basically turned her into a war criminal. She was sentenced to death, and that is basically what resulted in her remains ending up in the junk pile, which of course Ito later finds. And so yeah, if Alita reappears on the radar, then Ladder may find that to be an issue. Now, this is a difficult point because in the comic, Ladder didn't even recognize who Alita was because it was so many hundreds of years after that event. Yeah, sure, it was Yoko, but since she was rebuilt again as Alita, since Alita didn't have Yoko's memories, I wasn't sure if Ladder would be able to recognize Alita as Yoko. Now, as we know, during the Tuned arc, it seemed that the Tuned organization didn't seem to find Alita as a threat, but rather as a resource, right? The resource that they could leverage. And they found her through the Motorball games and found her skills to be quite useful. And so after the Zapan arc, they give Alita a choice of whether she wants to kind of die due to the crimes of the Zapan arc, or whether she wants to be reborn into the Tuned organization. Now, of course, Alita chooses the latter. But at that time, of course, the Tuned organization doesn't seem to think of Alita as a threat. And considering that Ladder is so powerful that they influence Tuned, then it's interesting that Ladder wouldn't send basically a message of execution down to Bigot, who was, of course, the manager or the director of Tuned, to have Alita killed. And so, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, if you recall in the Tuned arc, there actually is a mention of Ladder, that they're so interested that they were willing to offer Destinova the chance to come back to Zalem if Destinova was willing to work with them. And so, yeah, I mean, Ladder is a very powerful organization that, not only governs Jeru, but has their influence that comes all the way down to Zalem and eventually indirectly also affects Scrapyard City, as well as spanning all of Earth and going out into the cosmos. So yeah, their political influence is pretty darn strong. Yeah, of course, we know why Jeru is the central area. Not only is Mbadi there, but of course the Melchizedek, which is the supercomputer that governs the operations of Ladder, is located in Jeru. And that, of course, starts the entire Last Order story. So yeah, maybe Alita's history would be such a major threat that Ladder would worry about the existence of Alita. But that didn't occur in the comic, and I'm not sure if that would be the major reason for Vector to say Alita has to die because she is causing a problem to the natural order of things. Now, the other possibility is that message is a foreshadowing of the future. Now, as we know in Last Order, Alita does eventually go up to Zalem and eventually goes up to Jeru. And through that entire story, she does influence Ladder to the point where Ladder gets completely overthrown at the end of Last Order. It's not just Alita who influences it by that time, but other characters such as, I'm sorry if I pronounce her name wrong, Karula Sandwich. You know who I'm talking about, that resident vampire who eventually kills Embody, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's Alita's influence that may cause the overthrow of Ladder, and maybe this is a message that's kind of a foreshadowing to prepare the viewers that Ladder will eventually come out in maybe future movies, maybe here. It's a little bit too early for Ladder to appear now. But maybe this message is there to show that there is this kind of mysterious entity in the background that's worried about the existence of Alita. And of course, we know that eventually, this does become true when Alita challenges Embody and his organization. So maybe that's the case. And that is actually a pretty strong argument towards that case, because of the fact that if they mention it now, they could work on that statement and grow that statement in future movies, right? Whether they have it in the Barjack event, whether they have it in the Tuned event, all of this may come out later. And maybe somewhere along the way, Ladder will eventually come out once Alita moves and travels to Zalem with Desnova, in the beginning of the Last Order arc, if that ever becomes a movie. So, yeah, that was the other possibility. This is a much more bigger and epic sort of message, right? This is a scenario that spans almost the entire chapters of the original comic as well as Last Order, to see what they're talking about as far as the natural order of things. And I'm not sure if the developers of the movie would want to create a message that would span that far, but maybe. I mean, maybe they're thinking big, and I hope so. But it may be that, it may be that previous argument that I talked about in the Motorball world. I don't know. But this was something that was quite curious, that there was those two messages that came out. One was that Alita was affecting the natural order of things, and of course the other was that things changed after the war. And so this does seem to both imply that maybe Ladder will be coming out sometime in the future movies. I hope not now, the way Thanos eventually came out in the Avengers. So yeah, this will be interesting to see. And if this becomes a franchise, it will be kind of interesting to see how the developers bring Ladder forth, in the various organizations from Tuned to Embody and Last Order, and maybe other points in the story they'll bring the influence of Ladder out. Anyway, I just wanted to bring this point up because that was something that I didn't bring up in my last episode, and this was something that started bugging me later on, that I wanted to create this video and ask what you thought about it. Do you feel that maybe this natural order of things that they're talking about is the entire kind of infrastructure between Jerusalem and the Scrapyard City? And if so, are they somewhat implying that the governments that they're talking about, the governance, not the governments, that they're talking about is the organization of Ladder? Yeah, I would like to hear from you whether you feel that way, and if not, what you may feel is the natural order of things. And in any case, I'm looking forward to seeing how this story develops, not only in this movie, but hopefully in future movies to come, if Alita Battle Angel becomes a franchise, which I'm looking forward to it becoming. So thank you very much in advance for anybody who comments with regards to this. I apologize for how long this took to describe, but yeah, I'm hoping to see how this story develops, and I'm really looking forward to the movie. So I probably won't make another video after this. I can't promise, but if I do, well, yeah, come join me again. But in any case, let's look forward to a really successful movie and many more successful movies after that. And until the movie comes out, happy anime watching, happy comic book reading, happy movie watching, and as always, Jaya, nice day, everyone.